Money is not important as long as you love each other, right? Sure, if you live in fantasy land or your life's a romantic movie. But in the real world, money matters, and it matters a lot. A staggering 73% of married Americans report that financial decision making is a constant source of tension in their relationship. In fact, financial disagreements are the number one predictor of divorce. From differing spending habits to crippling debt and income inequality, money problems can quickly erode the foundation of a relationship. If you or your partner are not paying too much attention to financial problems, it might lead to a lot of distrust and resentment in the relationship. But here's the good news: money doesn't have to be the villain in your love story. By learning to communicate openly, compromise, and tackle finances as a team, you and your partner can not only avoid these problems, but actually use money to strengthen your bond. In this video, let's look at some of the most common money problems that plague relationships and how you can diffuse the situation before it completely ruins your relationship. Let's begin. Firstly, I want to say the obvious. Every relationship is different and everybody's relationship with their money is also different. While I talk through this video, I'm going to generalize a couple of points, but feel free to bend them a little bit to cater to your needs. One more thing I'll assume is that you do have some sort of shared money management going on in your relationship. However, if your situation is not like that, just disregard some of these points and modify them according to however you feel is right for you. One more thing to note is that some of the points that we'll discuss today might come off as cheap to some people if looked from a very traditional viewpoint. Well, I can't do much about that, so if you feel some section of the video is not for you, feel free to skip ahead. Now let's move on to the problem, starting with one of the biggest ones, that is conflicting money values. Conflicting money values occur when partners have fundamentally different attitudes and habits around spending, saving, and financial goals. Common conflicts include savers versus spenders, risk takers versus conservative investors, or status seekers versus minimalists. So I believe this is one of the biggest points. You need to really understand what your money values are. You need to make sure you know your money values, but also communicate it to your partner. Also, you should expect your partner to do the same. Values are not just about making and spending money. It also revolves around your general attitude towards money. Investing also plays a big role when it comes to your money values. One of the most common examples of this conflict is that one partner in the relationship really enjoys spending money. They like traveling, they like shopping, and they like eating at expensive places, while the other partner is not like that. While in the beginning of the relationship, this might not be a big problem, over a long period of time, it can cause a lot of conflicts. At some point in the relationship, the person who does not spend a lot of money is going to wake up and start questioning their life decisions. You must remember that differing money values stem from family background and personal experiences with money growing up. As you might expect, somebody who grew up rich is not going to be the same as somebody who grew up poor and now has money. Their approaches and attitude towards money is going to be very different. For example, if I look at my situation, I did not grow up rich, so saving comes very naturally to me. Also, I'm from India, where saving is a very integral part of our lives. On the other hand, I do have some friends who grew up rich and don't truly understand the value of saving because they never had to. Anyway, coming back to relationships, these misaligned priorities can cause a lot of problems and resentment. In fact, they can even lead to power struggles, which is never good in a relationship. If we look at some of the data, in the US, differing financial priorities and values are a top source of relationship stress for couples. In Canada, where I am, 51% of millennials have misaligned money habits and values with their partner. Even in Asian countries, conflicting money values can lead to lack of trust and vastly different lifestyle expectations in a marriage. So how do we avoid issues with conflicting money values? Firstly, discuss your financial values, goals, and habits early in the relationship to identify potential incompatibilities. Then you work together to create a plan that allows room for each person's values and priorities. So what does this all mean? Basically, like any other thing in a relationship, communication is key when it comes to your values and priorities. How do you expect your partners to understand what you think about money if you don't really tell them? Again, the point isn't to have the same values. The point is that you should understand each other's values and priorities and make sure you work as a team to incorporate both of them. One of the most important things that people often skip is talking about money in the beginning of a relationship because they view it as a taboo topic. But it shouldn't be like that. As we saw with the stats, this is what's been causing a lot of problems in relationships. Misaligned money habits and values often pave the way for the next problem that we are going to discuss, that is financial infidelity and secrecy. Financial infidelity is when one partner lies to the other about money, such as hiding purchases, debts, or accounts. When I'm talking about secrecy over here, it's in the realm of your shared money management world. Now, it might differ for everybody based on what you have decided as a couple. However, these can cause a lot of problems. This often stems from shame, poor management skills, or differing financial values again. It can actually come in many forms like secret credit cards, undisclosed debt, or large purchases purchases made without consulting the other partner. A very clear example of this is that let's say somebody in the relationship buys a very expensive couch for the house without consulting the partner. It might cause problems. I would actually bet that this indeed causes problems. In fact, I have heard a very similar story from one of my friends. Basically, the other partner does not really have any bad intentions as such, but when it comes to money, things can go bad really quickly. While one partner tries to do something nice, they end up spending a lot of money that can derail the other partner from their financial goals. So it's very important to be careful when it comes to the together part of spending. Again, if we look at some of the data points in the US, 43% of those who combine finances with a partner have committed financial infidelity, with 85% saying it affected the relationship. In Canada, 36% have lied to their partner about financial matters. And in India, financial secrecy is considered the new adultery and a serious relationship issue indicating lost trust. This is actually a very serious topic because in certain situations it can lead to financial abuse and lead to one controlling the other partner in a relationship. You can in fact imagine that someone in the relationship is spending a lot of money and gaslighting their partner at the same time, and it can become a very abusive situation pretty quickly. So again, how do we avoid getting into this situation? Firstly, as I said before, have regular honest conversations about money, including disclosing all debts, accounts and spending. Then you must set clear guidelines and boundaries around shared expenses that both partners agree to. Again, it comes down to communicating with your partners well and understanding what they really want, but at the same time it's good if you can disclose all the bad parts of your financial situation early on. A lot of people tend to combine their debts as they get closer and closer, or they get married, and this is something that must be discussed early on. In fact, I remember I read somewhere that somebody got married to their girlfriend only to realize that she had over $100,000 in debt that she hadn't disclosed to him ever. When they got married, the burden of her debt fell on him as well, and it completely caught him off guard. Now you can imagine how it must have ruined his financial plans pretty quickly. Basically, our goal is to never be in a situation like that. Forget about $100,000. You shouldn't even do that with $100, and be completely honest about what you're doing in the relationship. So we have discussed 2 points so far, that is misaligned values and financial infidelity. These two can erode trust in a relationship slowly, but let's look at something that can quickly ruin a relationship, that is unfairly splitting expenses. This is actually something that can quickly cause resentment and conflict. Unfairly splitting expenses is exactly what it sounds like. It's basically when you cannot agree on who spends what. A lot of couples struggle with what constitutes a fair split between them. Is it 50-50? Is it based on their income, or is it based on their expenses? As you can see, it can get very complex very quickly. When you can't agree on something, as you can imagine, it's going to lead to a lot of conflicts, but it can also lead to power struggles in the relationship, which is again not a good thing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this topic because I made a full video on this. Feel free to check it out. One point I do want to make is that unfair financial arrangements can make one partner feel taken advantage of or undervalued. And differing financial situations, such as one partner having more debt or lower income, often complicates the bill splitting. In the other video that I talked about, we looked at different ways of managing your money as a couple. No matter what your situation is with income and debt, one of those methods might work out for you. Other than that, if you want to avoid getting into this problem, make sure you account for two things. Firstly, understand each partner's individual income and financial situation to agree on a common lifestyle. And secondly, regularly reevaluate and adjust the split if one partner's financial circumstances change significantly. Basically, in a proper relationship, you have to agree on a lifestyle together. You cannot be living two lives at the same time and expect things to be going smoothly. Actually, I don't want to generalize that, because if you have a lot of money and you are extremely rich, you can live your life however you want. But for the common couple, it's best to agree on a common lifestyle. Okay, one last shameless plug. For a deeper dive into this topic, please check out the video I spoke about. Actually, expense splitting often coincides with the next problem that we are going to talk about, that is financial dependence. Before we talk about financial dependence, comment below what kind of hardships have you faced and overcome in your relationships. And if you're enjoying the video so far, hit like and consider subscribing. So financial dependence occurs when one partner heavily or completely relies on the other for money and access to resources. Generally, dependent partners often feel a loss of power and autonomy in the relationship. At the same time, the breadwinning partner may feel resentful of the financial burden and pressure to provide. This is actually taking us back to the most traditional way that people had lived over the decades. One person in the relationship makes all the money while it's spent by both. While this was done for the longest time over the decades, this kind of dependence can actually be very unhealthy in a relationship nowadays. With breakups and divorces being so common, the person who's dependent on the other person is often at risk of becoming completely financially ruined. ruined. Trust me on this one point, no matter how good your relationship or marriage is, you should never be in a situation where you cannot walk away from a person due to lack of financial independence. Just look at these numbers. In the US, 23% of couples primarily stay together due to financial dependence on one another. In this country, Canada, there are reports that financially dependent partners, especially women, often feel trapped in a relationship and struggle with their identity. And in countries like India, it's even worse, where financial dependence is a risk factor for experiencing intimate partner violence and control. The control and violence is actually a big problem in developing countries. Even in India, I know it firsthand that this happens. While in the West, although less common, it is present nonetheless. So what are some ways to avoid this? Firstly, both partners should maintain some financial autonomy through separate accounts or income. Secondly, for somebody in this situation, dependent partners can contribute in non-monetary ways and be granted access to joint financial resources. Although I added that point, I really want to stress that you should not be in that situation. I know most people who are watching this video are in the age group of 25 to 40, and nobody in that age group should be in this situation. You should be completely financially independent. If you're not there yet, just keep working towards it. Whether dependent or not, the next problem is actually faced by a lot of couples, that is lack of financial planning. Many couples avoid discussing long-term financial goals and plans, focusing only on day-to-day expenses. This lack of planning can lead to financial insecurity, differing expectations, and the inability to reach milestones together. So I think lack of financial planning is not just a problem that couples are facing, but individuals are facing as well. You cannot expect to come up with a financial plan for two people when you're not even doing it for yourself. A financial plan along with your money values are the foundation of good money management skills. The financial plan is also like a vision for your future, which contains goals as well, and couples may have very different visions of the future that they fail to communicate and reconcile. This kind of poor financial planning can actually lead to bad standards of living for a lot of people. And if we look at really far into the future, it can also mess up retirement for couples. Generally speaking, whether you are alone or with somebody, you should always plan for financial crisis, job loss, and medical emergencies. Again, as you'll see across the world, there's data that shows that this is a problem. Lack of financial planning is a major source of stress and relationships, especially in older couples. So here are 2 tips that can help you avoid this. Firstly, try to schedule these regular money dates to discuss your budget goals and progress as a couple. Secondly, you might want to work with a financial planner who can help you create a roadmap to shared goals like retirement. Again, the recurring theme of this video is that you need to communicate with your partner as much as possible, whether it's about your values or about your goals. Good communication about money is essential in a relationship, and honestly, you should be communicating about a lot more things other than money as well. Now, let's look at another problem that can cause immediate tension in a relationship, that is income inequality. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time discussing income inequality because it's very closely related to dependence and expense splitting that we spoke about before. Of course, this problem occurs when one person is earning significantly more than the other person. It can lead to a power imbalance, with the higher earner feeling more entitled to make financial decisions. On the other hand, the lower earning partner may feel guilty, resentful, or financially dependent. This is a very common occurrence in friend circles as well. We have some friends who make more than us, so they want to do something, and now you don't want to be the person who says no, so you just go along with the plan and end up spending more money than you actually can. While as you grow older, it's easier to say no to friends, it's often much harder to say no to your partner. If they want to do something, even if it's expensive, you kind of want to do it with them. While in the moment you might end up doing it and it might feel good, over time it can cause resentment but also ruin your financial plan, so be careful out there. This kind of brings back the point we discussed before, that is agreeing on a lifestyle that suits both of you. In some situations, maybe you don't have a lot of money, but your partner really wants to do something and they are also willing to pay for it. Don't feel bad about such things. Try to reach a point where both of you can enjoy. Also consider these 2 tips. Firstly, discuss financial expectations and responsibilities early in the relationship. This is something that we have spoken about a lot so far in the video. Secondly, always consider the value of non-monetary contributions. In some cases, it could be childcare and household management. The point is that a relationship hinges on a lot more factors other than money, and you should consider all of them when talking about your life. When I use the term common lifestyle, it doesn't have to be just from the lens of money. It needs to be a much more holistic process where many different factors are considered when deciding on how you want to live with your partner. Now, whether your income is equal or not, the next problem can actually strain a lot of relationships. I'm talking about high debt levels and overextended budgets. High levels of debt and living beyond the couple's means can cause significant financial stress. Debt is something that can lead to constant arguments, blame, and resentment between partners. Overextended budgets make it difficult to save for shared goals or weather financial emergencies. In general, debt makes people feel like they're trapped, and when there's debt in a relationship, it can actually lead to very unhappy outcomes problems over time. When you have debt, you have this constant feeling that something isn't right in your life, and when there's debt in the relationship, both the people can feel the effects of it. Even if the debt is not yours and it belongs to your partner, the effects of it can be felt on you as well. Maybe because of the way your partner has to restrict themselves from spending money, you have to change your lifestyle as well, and you might start feeling some sort of resentment. There are actually some very strong numbers when it comes to this problem. 54% of Americans say debt is a reason for divorce, and 33% hide debt from their partner. In Canada, 68% of divorced Canadians ended their marriages over financial problems like debt. In countries like India, 89% believe that being debt free is important for a successful marriage. I can remember from my childhood, this was a very common point of discussion for my parents as well. I'm sure you remember something similar as well. Now, here are two tips that can help you. As you'd expect, the first one is to openly discuss any existing debts before combining finances or ever getting married. Second is to agree on a budget that limits spending to an affordable level and prioritizes debt repayment, whether you're doing it on your own or prioritizing it together. Yes, I know you must be wondering, why does he keep talking about communication over and over again in this video? But it's very important to understand that a lot of these problems can simply be avoided by just openly talking with your partner. If you just have an honest conversation with your partner about a lot of things that we have discussed today, they can be tackled very easily with the right money management techniques. The point of this video was not to show you those money management techniques, but to highlight what causes problems in relationships and how you can avoid it. There are other videos that I've made about these money management techniques. Feel free to check those out. So those were some of the specific problems that I wanted to talk about in this video. However, there's one more thing that I want to mention again. In the beginning of the video, I said that it's very important to consider money as a factor in a relationship, and I stand by that. A lot of people, maybe over 80% of the people, fail to consider how money plays a key role in a relationship. When you're talking about compatibility and your chemistry with a person, you should also talk about your financial compatibility with them. You need to remember that money problems can quickly erode even the strongest romantic relationships. Trust me on this one, money is a very crucial factor when it comes to successful relationships. There's plenty of data out there that proves it as well. Again, if you communicate well with your partner, come up with good financial plans and good financial goals, you can be on the same page about your financial situation. Remember, whether you're the high earner or the frugal one, you're in this together. With honesty, compromise, and a shared vision for your financial future, you can overcome these problems very easily and build a long-lasting and happy relationship. On that note, if you like this video, hit like and consider subscribing. I'll see you next week in a new video. Till then, keep learning and stay on top of your finances. Until next time.